Hello, everyone. You are listening to the C Squared podcast with Corey and Curtis and our co-host Holly, who is joining us today all the way from England. We are back again with Mr. Doug Pinnick. He is from King's X. He has been in the industry for a bit, and he has agreed to answer all sorts of questions about navigating this industry and, some tips and tricks and advice from somebody who's been around for a little bit in the industry to help guide you younger bands who tend to listen to our show. So first, before we get started, I want to say thank you for coming back and joining us again on this podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, and for anybody who has either A, been living under a rock, or B, did not listen to the last podcast, which if you didn't, go back and listen to it, do you want to give a little brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
My name's Doug Pinnick, and I play in a band called King's X. We've been around for almost 40 years. Got about 13 or 14 records out. I lost count. We've been in the music industry for a long time. I have several side projects. And if you want to know more about me, just look me up on online, Doug Pinnick, and you'll find everything that you need to know. And hope we have a good time here.
Cool.
So we'll have some time. We always do.
We always
Yeah.
So Doug, since this is kind of like a short Q&A on how to for advice for younger musicians rather, question is, do you have any tips on how to find the right people to be in a band with, and specifically any red flags that make you shy away from working with other musicians?
Okay, one thing I have to say is people are different. Musicians can be great, but the person, as we know, can be somebody that you can't get along with. So first I would say, and this is what I've done, I can't speak for anyone else, but in my younger days, I would go to clubs or go to parties or wherever and listen to musicians play. If they really gave me goosebumps and I saw something really special in them, like in the way they played their music and how it made me feel, I always wanted to go up and jam with them. And I do believe that when you find that connection, if you find enough people with that connection, you have a magical band. And those are the bands that are usually successful with or without the industry. If you just go out and play, if you're that good, people will follow you, The thing also is that you might sooner or later not like the person.
Yeah.
But you can learn to live with that too also, because you don't have to be around that person. You can just make music with that person. If you know the music that you make is magical, then egos, you just go, I can't stand you, so we'll stay away from these things here and just make our music. Sometimes that works. There are bands that we can name that are doing that right now. And for me personally, being in a band for 40 years, the two guys that I play with are like my brothers. So I hate them as much as I love them. And we've learned to live together because it's sort of like a marriage, give and take sort of thing. So when you're looking for a band, that's what you want to find. Are they a family? Is it a gang of people that you can make great music with, even though you're a little bit different from each other? Sometimes difference makes a great record. Sometimes it doesn't. But I find that the strength of the band that I come from, King's X, is because me and the guitar player don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And as a result of it, something else happened and it was bigger than us. These are things that you learn as you do this. This is not a checklist, but you have to experience it. You have to, it's like having a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Sometimes it's not going to work. And sometimes you go, there's a lot of flaws here, but this is working.
Yeah.
I think that's the best I can say at the moment.
Well, what would be, just as the secondary part, because I don't know if you quite said this, but maybe was what would be the specific red flag?
Oh yeah, the red flag. When someone doesn't give you the respect to listen to what you have to say, if they have a lot to say, there's alpha males and you have to learn to get along with each other. Somebody's got to lead the band, but that person can't have the ego. You have to be like the guy that looks out, sees all the details, is that kind of person. It's the picky person who you can trust when the record company comes along and he'll read that contract all the way down to the bone and then argue with them about it. You know, you need that kind of person in your life if you're the type of person that just bounces around and wants to play music and have a good time. And you might clash as you're starting the band out or being in the band. But the thing you have to do is everyone find their place. There's one guy that usually talks from the stage. The rest of the guys don't need to say nothing. You know, if this is a guy that can reach the crowd, then let him talk. Even if you're in the corner and you want to say something, let it be focused on him. It helps the show. It's not confusing. The drummer, for instance, you know, maybe the drummer feels like he's not a part of the band, but remember everybody in the band. Without that drummer, you would not sound like you do. He is just as important with everyone else. It doesn't matter how many things you do in the band, it's how important you are to the band.
Cool. Very cool. I think it's Holly next.
It is. It's my turn next.
Awesome.
Yeah, the question I've got for you is, do you have any advice for bands who are trying to work out if they are ready for a record label or not?
I'll say that again. They're trying to?
Yeah, if they're trying to decide if they should go for a record label.
Oh, I think you should always go for a record label all the time from day one, because you're never going to have that perfect demo to give to someone. You just got to keep doing it, and you'll get turned down, and people will come along and maybe be a mentor and help you figure out maybe what you're doing wrong to maybe get a deal, you know, but you have to put yourself out there. If you don't put yourself out there, no one's going to listen to you. You have to make people listen to you in some way.
Cool. I have a bit of a follow-up on that. So do you think you're thinking, so unless I'm mistaken, what I'm understanding here, you think a band should always push to be signed to a label 100%?
Oh yeah, because you never know whether you're good enough or this is a good song or not. For instance, the song Over My Head, which is one of King's X most requested songs, and we have to play it every night. I thought the song wasn't any good, and I hid the song for like 7 years. And one day, everybody in the band accidentally heard it. And they looked at me and go, "What's the deal? This is a hit song." And it's one of our favorite songs that our audiences love. And to me, I thought it was a crappy song, so I wasn't even gonna let him hear it. And we had a record deal at the time. So don't trust yourself. If you feel good about the song and you put your heart into it, then present it to people and see what happens. And get some thick skin too. You'll write 1,000 songs before you die, hopefully. You get better and better and better. If you write 100 songs, you might get one that's a great, great, great song, and then you might not. Because it's an exercise of learning. If you haven't had a hit by the time you're 25, don't stop. I'm almost 71 years old, and I'm still going for trying to get that hit. You know, I've written hundreds of songs, almost 500 songs. And not one of them were a #1 hit, but it doesn't stop you, because on the way, you've learned how to write some really great songs, and a lot of people have been changed because they heard your music. So it's not the end of it. It's what you do in your long career.
Just out of curiosity, how long did it take you guys to actually get signed? I think it was Megaforce originally.
Yes, we did a demo, 4 songs. We actually had Andy Johns, who produced Led Zeppelin, or did some Led Zeppelin stuff, The Who. I mean, he was a big name guy, and he came and did our little demo of 4 songs. And we sent that demo to every major record label in the world, as far as we knew, and no one would take us.
Wow.
Luckily, our manager, and this is why I can say there is no set way to get a record deal, because I was told not to let anyone hear the song because we were trying to get a major record deal. Well, I let my friend hear it. I gave him a tape of it, which I wasn't supposed to do. He took the tape to Nashville, Tennessee, where he lived, and ran into a guy that played with a Christian artist called Amy Grant. And he says, "What's dUg doing?" And the guy says, "Well, here's the band, check it out." The guy calls me up and says, "So what's up with the band?" He goes, I said, "Well, nobody wants to sign us." And he says, "This one label, they might sign you. I know, here's the number." And what we did was we sent the record label our demo, and our manager's name happened to be the same name that one of the heads of Megaforce, Marsha, her name was, one of her best friends had the same name. And she thought that was a tape he was sending her of a band. So she thought, well, I guess I'll open this. And she opened it and she loved what she heard. But in the truth, none of this should have happened. It was all backwards. And so this is, so you never know. And you can ask any band, I think, any band in the world, and the story will be different. It's almost like, how'd you find your first love? The story is totally a different kind of thing. So something else you said too, because I want to get it out. You're so good at keeping me focused.
Oh.
I guess that's it. Yeah. I thought there was something else I was supposed to say. You had asked.
Well, I got one more follow-up on this one with the girl.
Sure.
Because you keep bringing up these different points, but okay. So you first got signed in.
Oh, yes. The question was when.
Yes.
Okay.
How long?
Okay. We formed in 1980, and we got a record deal in 1988.
That was the question. Yeah.
I was 38 years old.
Wow.
We played in this little town called Springfield, Missouri, bouncing off the walls, playing for small groups of people, making very little money to barely survive. And we all kind of lived in the same house for a while and fed each other for about 5 years. And luckily we moved to Texas to be a backup band for a singer. And within a year, Morgan Cryer. And we left Morgan because the churches wouldn't let us come back because we rocked too hard.
Oh, really?
And yeah, really, literally. And so we met this guy named Sam Taylor who worked with ZZ Top, and that's how we started working with him and morphed into the record deal. And 1988 was when our first record came out. So it took a while.
So okay, I'll let one of you guys do a follow-up if you guys want to before I go on, because I keep hogging them.
Oh, I'm sure. You go ahead.
You okay with me doing a follow-up, Holly? Yeah? Okay. So I got one more follow-up on this. So just to clarify for people that are listening, so you did from 80 to 87 or 88 or whatever year it was when you got signed with Megaforce. You guys were initially playing with another artist while you were trying to get signed to a label.
Yes, that was for about a year. Yeah, that's what got us to Texas from Springfield, a little town that we were lost in.
So I guess where I'm going with this is, would you advise other bands to kind of do that? Do like maybe play with someone else or do something else on the side while you're trying to get your own deal? Or
yes, I think you should do that if there's an opportunity. What happened with us was they told us that they had the ins with a major record label, and they were going to try to shop us to the major record label if we would play with this player or this Morgan Cryer. So we went, wow, that's a good deal. So we went and did it and got paid. And like I said, we lasted about a year. The plan was never to stay with them.
Cool.
They always knew that we were going to go do our thing, and we told them that too. We wouldn't, and they even wanted to put a record out for us, and we didn't want to be on a Christian label because we didn't want to be a Christian band.
Yeah, of course. I find it funny that now Morgan lists you guys on his website as being like his former. He's associated with you guys. Anyways, I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was funny because Ty and I wrote a couple songs off of his hit record. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're tied in with him pretty close. I mean, it was a year and a half, 2 years, and that's it. I don't think I've seen him maybe twice in the 30 years or so.
Okay, so you actually wrote some songs on that album.
Yeah, and Ty also our guitar player.
I did not know that. That is information. Okay, cool. I think I'm done on my follow-up on this. I think the next question is Corey, if I'm not mistaken.
It is me.
Hi, Corey.
That leads into the next question of when it comes to things like signing contracts, whether it's with managers or record labels, what are some red flags that musicians should look out for? Because I know we've all heard some horror stories of being taken advantage of. What are some clear signs that that's about to happen that people should look for?
One clear sign I would say is, and this is from experience, when you're working with somebody and they tell you they want to sign a contract, but they just don't seem to get around to it.
Yeah.
And you keep finding yourself deeper and deeper as they work with you. They're doing all these things for you. They're even spending money on you, all this stuff. And you say, what about a contract? Oh, we'll do it later. Know that they're going to screw you for everything you got. And I would run. Here's the sad thing. When there's only one person saying, I got a record deal for you, you have to make that choice, whether you should stick it out or you should run. And that's a scary situation, really. I would say watch your back and pay particular attention to those things when you're working with someone and money is involved, because if there's no contract, basically you owe them everything. They'll do that to you, I promise. In record companies also, big record companies, make sure you count the money that they spend on you and know what's going on, because like for instance, the first time we got signed with Atlantic Records, which was a major label, they took us out to dinner to this ritzy restaurant, and I know it cost them an unbelievable amount of money to have this party. I find out later we paid for it. You pay for everything, even the pencil that they use to write your name down. They will write that off and take that money from you. So I always know they're businessmen first, and they want to make money from you. And if they don't think they can, they're going to move on to the next one. It's very harsh reality. And that's why I say that when you put your band together, go play, create this magic. Because if you create the magic and people are coming to see that magic, the record companies will come to you with a different attitude, because they want you now, they need you. And you can give them a little leverage and say, I know I want this and I want that if you're going to sign me, because this is what we're all going to get. Be a businessman, or find someone in your camp that is a good businessman. And you were talking about other signs. One sign that really, I could be wrong with it, but just put it in the back of your mind, because it's always happened in my life, is when you meet a person who brags about what they've done, what they're going to do for you, and how they won't screw you over. And they bring that up a lot while they're telling you, oh man, I'm not the kind of record company that's going to do that to you, and I'm not going to blah, blah, blah. No, for 99% of that person will do exactly what he's telling you he's not going to do. It's happened to me 3 times in my career. And the 4th time, I knew it, but didn't say nothing because I didn't want to cause a ruckus. Then I watched it come to pass, and luckily it didn't hurt me. But yeah, you learn, and you're right about that.
So just as a follow-up right there, so all right, so you were talking about how they could screw you without a contract, but just can you kind of explain that in a little bit more detail? Because I've always been under the impression, like with the contract, you're in tighter than without a contract.
With the contract, you're tighter, because everybody knows what they're getting. And legally, if someone reneges on something or does something wrong, then you can take them to court. If you don't have a contract, at the end of the day, well, I'll tell you a little story. King's X, 5 years, 6, 7 years, I think, we had a manager who, like I told you before, he worked with ZZ Top. And he said he never was paid, and he wouldn't let us see the books. He just said, you don't trust me. And when we finally saw the books after maybe 6 years of wondering why we're so broke and money was coming in, he came in and said, I quit. You guys are too hard to work with, and I want severance pay. And we go, what do you mean? And he says, talk to my lawyers. We never signed a contract.
Oh man.
We never signed a contract. And when he left us, he took everything but our name.
Wow.
All the contracts, contacts, all the people that we worked with, all the people in the whole business thing that we did, because he kept us away from everyone. And that's another flag, 2 red flag. When they say, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, trust me. Nah, go in there with them. Maybe you don't have to say nothing, but go inside the meeting with them and listen to what they have to say. I can tell you horror stories about managers who, a manager went into David Geffen's DGC records and stood on top of a table and screamed at everyone for not working with his band because Nirvana had just had a hit. And he said, we can settle this Texas style, and wanted to get into a fight with him. We find out this way after the fact. So you don't know what these people are doing. And if they really think they got a hit band, they can turn into that asshole tyrant too, that tries to control you and wants everything. So those are a lot of flags. Sorry about that. That's a lot of flags to deal with, you know?
Cool. Do either of you guys have a follow-up on that before we go on to the next one?
No, but it is all super valuable information. It may be a lot
Good.
of flags, but like the whole point of this podcast is to educate newer, younger bands so they don't run into these horror stories or make these mistakes,
Right.
because it's entirely too common.
Totally.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
I think we got one final question, and that's
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different. This is
Great.
a question about vocalists. So have you got any tips for vocalists who are trying to find their own voice? So for example, they're trying to balance the getting the technical side of it right, but also balancing like the emotional performance with it.
This is a difficult one because it's hard to encourage sometimes. The first thing is, it's sort of like when a little story I'll tell. When I went to college, my first music class was music theory, and I noticed that the teacher would kind of pay attention to like 4 people in the class, and everybody else he sort of ignored. And I was so upset. And he always gave me attention, but I used to get so upset, and I'd talk about it to some of the classmates. And they finally told me, they said, because those people don't have it, and he's not going to waste his time on it. And so first thing I can say is, when you open your mouth up and there are people reacting no matter what you do, if they're telling you to shut up, or they're crying, or they want you to sing or whatever, then know you have something. And if you have it, then just start doing it. And as you do it, you will learn what's off pitch and what isn't on pitch. And listen to music, and listen to structures, and listen to people's nuance. What I mean by nuance is how a person does their vibrato, or how a person makes a sound with the words that they say. And not copy them, but embrace it. For me personally, my favorite singers are Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, and Sly and the Family Stone. And I, as a teenager, I learned every note that they sang, and every inflection, and and I learned them all because I just played it over and over again, and I learned to mimic it. And through that, I learned to become my own voice, because I always could sing. So I just listened to other people. So the bottom line is, listen to other people, other musicians other singers who move you, not the ones that you don't like, just the ones that you love, and embrace them, and just find those things. Another thing also is, I grew up in a Black gospel church. And in my teen years, I would go to church, and the choirs would sing, and they always had a lead singer that would get up and sing a song every Sunday, maybe 2 songs. And these singers had these incredible voices that were like Stevie and Sly and the Family Stone and people like that, real soulful singers. But what I learned was when they sang certain riffs or said certain words or hit a certain note, everybody went nuts. And I thought, oh, because singing with passion and singing with soul or whatever that is, you have to learn that. But to sing from your heart, you have to open your mouth up and let it go. And then you learn how to manipulate it into something that's beautiful. But you have to have it at first. And encouragement is always important. Even if people say you can't sing, you know, if you love it and you wake up singing and you go to sleep singing, then just do it. I would say take a couple music courses, vocal courses, just a couple, not too many, because if you take too many, then you become an opera singer, you become too perfect. And for me personally, those type of singers I respect, but I don't feel what I'm looking for. You know, I think also that, I mean, you could sit down and listen to Celine Dion and she's an exception, or Barbara Streisand, who they sing perfect and they're amazing. Just listen to these people and listen to how they sing and just feel them. That's all I think I can say. If you have any more questions about it, I can dig down in that hole for sure.
Do you have any follow-up on that, Holly? Since you're the vocalist of the group?
I'm not sure I do, because I agree with all that. And I think, like you say, it's very much you've sort of got to find your own path to an extent.
Totally.
So, yeah.
And the cool thing about this genre is this is the genre where you really can find your own path. It doesn't have to be the perfect. You don't have to be the opera trained vocalist or anything like that. An imperfect voice can still find its home in this genre if you've got the passion behind it. I mean, look at Ozzy. His voice isn't what you would consider, you know, like this classic opera, amazing voice, but it's his, and he's passionate about it. And
very
so
passionate.
If you've got it, it is the passion. It's not necessarily always the technique.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Do either of you guys got any more?
What I love about this genre is that in rock and metal, you can really make it your own. There's no rules, and that's the whole point of the genre, and it's what I love the most about it.
Yes, what I love the most about rock music too is that you can always change the climate. If you can find that thing to do, you can change the whole world to follow that direction for 10 years.
100%. So I think that was the last question. Do either of you guys have any follow-ups before we let Doug go? That was our chance.
Good on my end. Is there any other tidbits of wisdom that you think young bands should consider as they grow in their career? Any other things that we didn't touch on that people should have in their minds?
Yes, learn how to play the whole song straight through. Even when you go into a studio, it's so easy to cut and paste. I find that it's gotten to a point where this is what we do now. You can play a riff one time and double it and then fly it. But then when you go on stage to play, you're not pulling it off like you did on the record because you took one time and you flew it all. It's very important to play a whole song as a band just for the stamina of doing it. And another thing is, I used to listen to a lot of soul music, Motown especially, back when I was a teenager. And those vocalists just changed my life. But about 10 years ago, I got a chance to listen to some of the tracks without music. Listening to Stevie Wonder or listening to just down the line, these people. And when I listened to them sing, I could hear them struggling at places. And I could hear them not going to where they usually would go to because their voice had wore out at that point because they had given so much passion, but then they gave you something else that was an alternative of what they were trying to do. But when you put the music together, it makes the magic. You can hear the fight, the struggle, the passion. If you go into a studio now and you can go, and then come back and go, and then punch it and do it 5 times. So you go, and no one knows the difference. I think this is kind of the new way people are making music, and I wish we could go back to the old way where the passion was. Maybe that might be why a lot of music these days don't have the passion that we feel it had in the past. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. Excellent.
Okay, good.
Curtis, any more follow-ups from you?
I'm thinking, and I'm drawing a big fat blank. Holly, do you got one?
No, I think I'm good. I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, I think we have.
There's a lot of advice, and I really hope people listen, because like I said earlier, the whole point of this podcast is to avoid those pitfalls people find themselves in, and teach people how to avoid the scummy people of the industry, because there are unfortunately too many of them. But definitely thank you for coming on again and sharing your wisdom with us. We love having you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. See you again.